Exclamation money and welcome to Sky of Destruction. It's by Seder Entertainment, and it's currently in early access on Steam for $12.99 US. And it's a top-down shooter. You fly fighter jets. And it's hard to explain why I felt the need to kind of like, you know, make a video of this as opposed to any other top-down shooter that I might just kind of play and be done with. When I first ran across it, it kind of gave me like a little bit of a Raptor Call of the Shadows vibe to it. I don't know why it gave me that vibe. I just got that vibe from it. It's nothing like that game, but it reminded me enough of it that I wanted to jump into it, and I've played a little bit of it, and there's not a lot here yet, and it's still very early. It's like 0.1.6 is what they just released, but what's here is enough that you can kind of see where they're probably going to go with it, and I'm very interested in the direction it's taking. So I'm going to resume the game that I started. It's not a big deal. There's no like story or anything, so it's not like you're missing out on anything. But you do get to see kind of where I'm at and what I've been doing. So you start out basically when you start a new game, it asks you how big you want your map to be. I took the biggest map, which is 30 hexes. And then you move from one hex to the next to do your actual battle zones. And each battle zone has a sort of a different, if I go to the map here, each battle zone has a different objective. So like this one's destroy enemy buildings, this one's destroy enemy bases, this one's destroy enemy bases and enemy buildings. I think the only two that I've seen so far are destroy enemy buildings and destroy enemy bases. I assume they might be working on more than that as I go, and then as you can see, the difficulty starts to ramp up too as you go to different areas. Like the next ones are going to be 3 difficulty, but you could go back and replay any of the other zones that you were in, that you already cleared out. So whenever you need like some cash to make some more production and upgrade your carrier and stuff like that, you can always go back and replay the ones. I'll probably replay this one just so you can see it, because I know I can get through this one relatively unscathed. But if I go back to the hangar here, there's all kinds of different ships you can have, but your carrier, which is this down here, can only hold 3 different types of ships. Now I have 2 fighters here. There's no reason for me to have 2 fighters. I could really bring down like a hammer, say, and I don't even know, like I don't have anything upgraded on this, but it's got seeker missiles and stuff, so I could put him there if I wanted to. And each of these ships you can fly if you want. You know, the one in the first slot is tied to number 1 key, this is tied to number 2 key, this is tied to number 3 key, so you can go fly any one of these that you want. I've been flying the fighter mostly, because if I go over here you can see I've got a ton of upgrades for it, and all these upgrades are things that you find, that I found after completing one of the areas. Like it'll randomly drop you something, and then it'll go into the inventory over here, and then you kind of have to do some inventory Tetris to kind of fit them onto your model here. That said, you do it at this level up here, right? So as soon as I do this to a fighter, if I had 3 fighters down here, they would all have the same upgrades. So that's the nice thing about that. You don't have to worry about trying to find duplicate copies of them and all that stuff. They'll all get the same upgrades from what I've seen. And all these things do various things. Like this gives me additional damage, but it reduces the armor a little bit. This gives me this reduces my spawn duration, but reduces the number of times I'm allowed to respawn. Armor chip gives it additional armor, additional speed. The engine chip, massive armor, it gives this guy plus 13 armor, so you can see what our armor stats are, respawn limit, and all those things. So you only respawn these up to 49 times, normally 50. And that comes into play. Because you, the player, are not necessarily going to respawn 49 times. However, your carrier, even though you take control of one of the fighters, the carrier will continually spawn over time additional copies. So that respawn limit comes into play depending on how long you're actually out in combat. So, you might actually end up not having a ship to jump into. I don't think that becomes too much of a problem, but it just means that you're only going to get 48 helpers that are in fighters, as opposed to, say, 50 as it is. So there's that. Up here is the credits. This is actually, this is really scrap. This is the amount of money, the amount of credits you've gotten from scrap. The idea is that you, every enemy fighter that you down, an enemy carrier that you down, gives you scrap, or buildings even. They give you scrap, and then the more scrap you get, the more you can use it for consumable items and stuff. So if I go over to production here, they only have 2 different consumables right now: torpedoes and EMF, electromagnetic disruptors, EMPs, basically. These do exactly what you would expect them to do. It stuns an enemy so that they can't fire back for a while. Torpedoes are just massive explosions that you can take. I'm going to actually equip 2 of those because that takes 100 100 credits basically. I'm going to create that. And then what I do is just drag that. It does 20 damage. I can drag that down to the right mouse button, or Q or E, depending on what you prefer. I prefer the torpedoes on the right, and then this one I'll just take 1 of those because they are expensive. And these are your consumables, so you can just, as soon as you use them up, they're used up, or you can bank them and you'll still have them, that kind of thing. You also have your carrier, and everything takes the same pool of credits. So I'm down to 93 credits now, which means I can't really install any more armor on the ship. And it's interesting that I'm just noticing that the cursor goes under the ship. That's interesting and weird. Okay, but there's also upgrades for the guns on your carrier, and I haven't really explained the carrier yet. But the carrier is your home base. It's on the map. The enemy over time will spawn enemy fighters, which will come out and try to attack your carrier. You have guns on the carrier that will help protect it, but your carrier has like 2,000 points of hull or whatever. It says it right there, total armor 2,000. And if your carrier is destroyed, you lose. So obviously you still need to protect your carrier, but at the same time, you need to take the fight to the enemy as well. In practice, there's usually enough time there, so far anyway, that your carrier has spawned a bunch of helpers for you, because like I said, even though you launch in a fighter, there's more fighters launching behind you as well, or other planes that you've decided to take on the carrier, and so a lot of them will hang back and help out a little bit. I've had the carrier still take some damage, but not enough that it prevented me from just being on target, or staying on target, I should say. So that explains all this stuff. So I go back to the map. I'm going to go battle back in here again before going on to the even harder difficulty things. You can see here's our possible enemies that we could run up against. The Traptor, the Raptor, and the Fighter. We will run up against pretty much all of them. And I'll try to explain as we're going what's going on. There's some, as you might expect for something this early, there's some jankiness and other things. And I'll try to explain what's going on. It's all keyboard driven, WASD in particular, and it's a little bit touchy. So let's just jump in and see what's going on. And of course, shift to boost. So I can select my aircraft to start off with. You can see here's what I was talking about. There's 40. This thing, you can see it says 48 now, 47. So stuff is launching, immediately, even while I'm just sitting here not taking off yet. And that will keep going on as these are guys launching off my carrier to go and help out. I'm going to launch on a fighter. Okay, and you fire your turret. You have a turret, so it just follows the mouse cursor. You can see the red. There's a mini map down there. The red is the enemy. The little ones are the fighters. The big one is the carrier. The objective is to destroy the carrier, ultimately. So that's where we're at there. I don't believe there is friendly fire, so ooh, the bottom of the map is also a giant wall, so you want to make sure you don't smash into that, because that is an instant death, pretty much. And this is the enemy carrier. Now you can see up the top left-hand corner is how much scrap we've already collected, as well as the current armor of my current fighter. There's more enemies getting shot up there. Unfortunately, they don't tell you what the armor is of the enemy carrier, and I imagine that is an aesthetic thing. They want you to be constantly not sure, so you're not sure, like, should I keep attacking it? Should I just leave it be for a little bit? Should I get some more scrap? So I can kind of understand that, but at the same time, I really feel like that should be something on the screen somewhere. And and there it is. It's already down. Got 174 resources out of that altogether. You can see it up here. And then we have collected some sharp ammo, which gives us additional critical hit power. So excellent. So I can go and I can choose to put this on any ship I want. I'm going to actually put that on the Raptor, because I haven't really been upgrading the Raptor. So bang. And I'll fly a couple different ships so you can see what they all look like. I wasn't expecting that to go so quickly, though. I guess my since I've had so many upgrades, we're now kind of blowing through it really fast. But WASD it's a weird combination for this, because it's not that it's weird, it's that it doesn't do exactly what you would expect it to do. So let's go back here for a second to the difficulty 1, just so I can kind of explain things in relative ease. We'll do the destroy enemy bases so you can see what that looks like. I'll do one of the harder difficulty ones after I don't have to explain what's going on. And we'll do the Raptor for this one. There we go. So, again, you can see... Oh, this is still enemy bases, so this is still the enemy carrier. No, I thought this was... Oh yeah, it is still the enemy carrier. Huh. That's weird. I swore that this was the actual enemy facilities thing, but apparently it's still this. That's really weird. So I was expecting something else here. Alright, well, we'll just keep going with this. Maybe it was I know one of these had enemy buildings. This is not enemy buildings, obviously. But this will be a good way to get some scrap anyway. So yeah, the WASD, your ship doesn't turn. It immediately points in whatever direction you're facing. So if you think of WASD as north-south, or north, south, east, and west, kind of. You know, if you think of them as cardinal directions, that's how your ship goes. It's not a smooth transition. It's not like you're turning, like you're turning an aileron or something. It's more like you're immediately facing that way. See, here's W, or I'm sorry, here's D, here's A, here's D, here's A, and it's a little bit difficult to get used to because it makes your ship not as maneuverable as you might expect it to be. Like it's kind of a little bit too, maybe maneuverable is not the word I should use, but it makes it kind of it makes it a little bit difficult to control. And I feel like one of the things they really need to fix is that when you hit A and D, your ship should turn in that direction. Like I don't even think, like S could still be a like put the brakes on kind of thing, and W could be, you know, continue moving forward. But I think A and D should be more of a turn rather than an instant, like, oh, I'm going to go to the right or I'm going to go to the left. You know what I mean? And it shouldn't be like W and S are like, I'm going up or I'm going down kind of thing. I feel like that's a little too weird and odd of a way to control it. I think it would be more natural if it was just an actual turn that you were making. The other thing, and this is an armor chip, so we'll put that on the Raptor as well. Upgrading the armor a little bit. The other thing, let's do one of the harder ones. Actually, what's the one here? Oh, buildings. There, bases, buildings. Yeah, let's do the buildings one so you can see what buildings look like. This is the first one we started off with, so it's an easier one. And we'll fly the hammer just for the sake of argument. I've never flown this yet, so I have no idea what it's like. The other thing I would point out here, you can see these buildings down around here. There's no fighters in this one, it's just buildings with guns on them. You can see there's also like a whole bunch of canyons and stuff that you can smash into and hurt yourself, so that's, you gotta be sort of keenly aware of what you're doing. And your fighter will constantly move forward too, so like I'm not pressing W or anything, I'm just kind of trying to keep it straight here. So that's another thing to kind of think about. But and this is where I constantly turn around. I want to go up, but I keep thinking I'm going to turn to up instead of actually point up. This is not doing well at all, is it? This is apparently not good for bases at all, because it's barely doing any damage, this thing. I wonder, maybe I should switch back to the fighter. Now it says that there's an enemy fleet somewhere here, but there isn't on this first one. It says it down the bottom right there, but yeah, there really isn't. So I think that's just a placeholder or whatever. But you can see what it's like to take on buildings and stuff. Now, this is one of the easier buildings. It doesn't have any guns on. The other buildings do have guns. Now, the one thing I would say about this, and this is where it gets, this is where I'm like, I feel like the game either needs to, there's some guns. I feel like the game either needs to make all the fighters move slower, like across the board, and or zoom out the field of view a little bit. Because, you know, for bases and stuff it's okay, but in some of those other missions where there was fighter ships around and you were trying to take on fighters and whatnot, it's not a whole lot of fun trying to take on fighters, because they're basically, most of the time they're just off screen and you're trying to just hit something that's just off screen. It's very hard to like keep them on screen because of how zoomed in, I guess, and how fast everything is. Like I feel like if they reduced the speed across the board of everything, and also possibly made the field of view wider, or had more stuff on the screen, like zoom out a little bit, I feel like it would make it much more fun to take on the fighter pilots and stuff. Like this is good for for the big bosses and things, for big buildings and the carriers and stuff. But when it comes to the fighters, it makes, and you can see these are floating in air now. When it comes to the fighters, it's really not fun to take them on like this. And I also, because you're not really turning, you're just kind of pointing in a direction. And it's kind of a rough thing, right? Because you really need to take them on. Oh, there we go. No resources collected, but we did get this thing. You really need to take them on because core regen, health regeneration. Ooh. Ooh, that would be really good on the fighter. Really, really good. Oh, can I not put that on there? There it is. Okay. So now we got health regen on our fighters. Yeah, it's... I want to... Because you want to collect scrap. You want to collect lots and lots of scrap. Because that's what you're buying consumables with. That's what you're buying armor with and stuff. And in fact, I have 300, so let's buy a little more front armor, maybe, if it'll let me. Oh, it's 1,500. Oh, it goes up to 300. It's 1,500. Okay, never mind. And these are 1,000. You know, can't do that right now. Let's go do this. Destroy enemy buildings. Enemy base. Let's destroy enemy bases. We have a fighter, a traptor, and something else that we haven't met yet. Let's go to battle. And I'm going to take my fighter out. See what we can do. So yeah, I feel like the game is not quite fun when it comes to just like fighter combat, because you really want to be... Ooh, there's a thing that I didn't quite tell that was going to be in my way. Because you really do want to take on these things, because you want to destroy them. Oh, so that you get some scrap for it. But as you can see, you're either bouncing off of them because you're moving so fast, or it's just you're shooting at something that's just off screen. And that kind of I would like it to be a little bit more. I like to be able to set to see what I'm shooting, number one, and number two, I think it would be more interesting if you can. It would make that part of the game much more interesting, and thus make it easier to sit here and try to farm scrap, because it would behoove me. Like, you can see how much of the fleet, how many enemy fleet they have left down there, right? You can see that number constantly going down and everything. I think it's constantly going down, is it? It might not be. They might have infinite ships. It's just I don't see those numbers going down at all, which is interesting. Even though I just destroyed one. Oh, there it is. It is going down. It's just you have to... Yeah. Well, we knocked the back part of that off. There we go. And we got more sharp ammo. Cool. But it takes our speed down. That's fine. But see, it's stuff like that I would like to... What's our speed on this? 176. That's actually probably... I would actually probably rather have the speed down a little bit on here. On this guy. Critical hit power goes up. Alright. You can see how it branches off now. Based on what we've just done. We can destroy enemy buildings here, or go with another enemy base thing. Let's go with the enemy buildings. And the difficulty keeps going up as we go, obviously. I'm gonna stick with the fighter. I really like the fighter because I've been doing the most of the upgrades to it. Oop, oop. Again, this is another problem with the being so zoomed in. You can't see a rock formation coming up. Heavily armed. Heavily armed. But I got some help in the form of more fighters launching. And of course there's tactical reasons for which position you put your fighters in, because as you can see, like, there's only one. It's only my carrier's only spawning fighters right now because that was in what was in the first position. So depending on what you're trying to do, you want to put in the first position the thing you want the most of early on. Okay, he's down for count. So is he. Nice. Ooh, that guy. That guy. Now up in the top right-hand side, I haven't mentioned it yet, but that's the health of my carrier. We're still sitting pretty there with that, which is good. Ooh, this AI might be having a little bit of a problem with that. Looks like the AI is having a little bit of a problem with this rock formation here. They're trying to get at my carrier, and they're failing to navigate. That might be something they're going to want to look at. That thing is not dead yet. As many times as I shot it, it's still not. There it is. Now it's down. So you can see the effect I'm having on, whoops, by constantly just sitting around picking off these guys. Oh, that sucked. Okay. Oh, but you can see now we're taking some damage because they have made it to the carrier here. There's no friendly fire, so I know if my guns hit something, it's an enemy. Yeah, they're having a lot of trouble navigating. Where's this guy at? See, like I said, it's not as much fun when you can't see where these guys are. Much more fun when you can follow them. We gotta get over and destroy these buildings at some point here. Now you can see they're down to like 9 of that one type of ship, which is good. Oh, and that's actually one of the ones that's coming after me right now. Alright, come on, baby. You over there. It did say in one of the like tutorial tips that your friendly fighters will actually pick up stuff along the way, like pick up like power-ups and stuff along the way. I haven't seen any power-ups myself, but I will go on faith that that's what's happening. Oh, we have taken down most of their fighter cover here, which is fantastic. Lots of scrap now. Definitely making a dent in it. Oop, things are exploding. Things are exploding in hilarious ways. And I'm okay with that. Oh, there it is, victory. Wow, 942 we got. And more sharp ammo as well. So we'll go over to the... I have the hammer here. Alright, let's put that over here. Actually gave it a little less speed, but some more critical hit power. You see it's got a light machine gun. I haven't found anything yet with like new equipment. And it doesn't look like you can produce new equipment, it's just consumables. So I'm not sure when that comes into play, or if it even comes into play yet. It might not be in the game yet. You can tell it's very early, but what I like is that even though it's in a very early state, it's very much, you can see what direction they're going in, and that's the most important thing, I'd say. And I still don't have enough to do any armor, but I can upgrade the guns on it. You know, they have placeholder things in here too. I believe when you look at the tutorial pop-ups, the English is a little bit broken in them, so I believe English is not their first language. But it's you can muddle through it enough to figure out what they're saying. There we go. Upgrade that gun there. Very nice. And I don't really need any more. I haven't been using my missiles because my guns are good enough now that I haven't really been using the missiles for anything. And I haven't tried like the Leviathan or anything like that. You can see it's got a little bit of health regeneration, HELTH. You know, it's early. You gotta give them some leeway here. But you can see how like much armor it's got, a respawn limit. You can only have 10 of these, and all that stuff. So I really am liking what they're doing here. I think it's a really cool thing altogether. And having those nodes on the map means that they could have more gameplay modes. Like I would like to see them do something like almost like a tower defense one, or just like a plain old defense one, where right now your carriers are both static and they don't move. It'd be interesting if your carrier was moving and you didn't see an enemy carrier. There was no enemy carrier. It was just survive certain enough waves of enemies coming in. So that might be an interesting mode too. And they've left the door open where they could do a lot of interesting things with it, and I'm kind of excited. And like I said, there's just a few like mechanical things that I think if they worked with them a little bit, they could make something special here. And obviously the other thing I'm going to say is controller support would probably be a very good idea. I have not tried to use a controller on it. I don't think it actually has it yet. I think it's still too early for it to have it, but that would be ideal as well, as having some kind of controller support. That would kind of smooth over some of the rougher edges too, probably. But this, my friends, has been Sky of Destruction. It is by Seder Entertainment, and it is in early access on Steam. It's very early access right now. Currently $12.99 US. As always, I will leave links down in the description so you can do your own due diligence. Thanks so much for watching, everybody, and I will see you next time.